It's been 4 years since the Macondo incident, and at the 2014 IADC Annual General Meeting, Dr. Ed Overton, Professor Emeritus at Louisiana State University, talked about the impacts. Dr. Overton, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the points that you mentioned was that the oil spill did not ruin the coastline, but it impacted it. What were some of the impacts?
Well, there were a lot of animals that were killed by the spill. They get coated. The fishing and shrimping industries were shut down, so there were numerous impacts both in the deep water and in the offshore and in the coastal waters, particularly coverage of plants. When you cover the plant, you kill the plant. You get coastal erosion, so there was a variety of those type impacts. Potential for some seafood contamination, so we had to close the industry in those areas. So there's any number of impacts, both ecological as well as economic and sociological.
Okay. And based on your research and studies, what have you learned as the best response to oil spill?
Well, the first thing we need to realize is that oil is a natural substance and it can be degraded naturally. Now, when you put too much oil in our environment, it takes a long time for Mother Nature to respond. So you get an incredibly large response, and it's a real mess for a year or so. People can do things to help it. They can kind of skim the oil off the surface of the water. You can burn it, and you can wash it off the surface of the water with a chemical called dispersants. All of those are basically moving oil down into the environment and letting Mother Nature clean her using natural bacteria.
Okay. And from your perspective, what is the biggest lesson learned for the drilling industry?
Well, I think an ounce of prevention is worth pounds and pounds of cure. So I hope the drilling industry realizes that it's a lot better to take all and small efforts that you can to prevent these spills rather than a massive effort to respond once the spill occurs, because the amount of cost is just inconsequential if you do it in a preventive measure versus a response to a spill. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Once there's a spill, you've got to get into the response mode, do everything you can to help Mother Nature clean it up. Oil spills are acute responses. That means that most of the damage occurs fairly quickly after the spill. It does linger, but the damages that linger are not very significant in terms of ecological impacts.
Great. Well, Dr. Overton, thanks so much for sharing with us some of your point of views.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on drillingcontractor.org.